was lost and alone, like Korihor, cast far from home. Like Korihor, they stole my voice. Like Korihor, left without a choice. But unlike Korihor, I can speak again. Unlike Korihor, I have a friend. In my darkest hour, my hope was renewed, because unlike Korihor, I had you. Like Korihor, no guardian angels flew. Like Korihor, shamed by those I never knew. At no God's command, my own footprints remain in this sand. But unlike Korihor, I can speak again. Unlike Korihor, I have a friend. In my darkest hour, my hope was renewed, because unlike Korihor, I had you. Like Korihor, you helped me to see. Like Korihor, you lit the path for me. Because of you, I'm not without a home. Because of you, I'll never walk alone.
I have to say, we are live. And perhaps the greatest innovation of Korihorism so far is Godless hymns, because they get everybody in the mood. We got AT Chick here, maybe with or without substantial beverage, not even a hot beverage, so it's legal in Mormonism, unless, of course, you are a footnote. Can I get an amen out there from some Mormon footnotes? Those of you who don't know, this is General Conference weekend for the Mormons, and I was going to go down and preach live in front of the convention center and said, no, that's going to hurt my back. I'm going to have to fight Mormons on the I-15. No, thank you. And I'm not giving this church that much power over me anymore. It's just, to be honest with you, I deconstructed Mormonism and God 24 freaking years ago, and I'm better off for it. And frankly, most days, I don't even think about them. But that's not every day. Hence today's Godless sermon. Going to do this a little bit differently. Usually I write out my sermons ahead of time. I have one that I've prepared, but an innovation struck me, an inspiration, an undivine intervention, if you will. We're going to go over it today. We're going to talk about reclaim. Reclaim is the third official sacrament of the Church of Korihor. I'm excited about it because it's going to give us an opportunity to start new missions, and tons of them. And it's especially going to give us opportunities to ordain women. Now, the Church of Korihor doesn't want to get the reputation of discriminating. Those of you out there, critics lining up in the halls, lining up in the foyer to say that church discriminates based on gender and sex. They don't ordain men. Just because the Church of Korihor has not ordained any men yet does not mean that we don't ordain men. We ordain men. We are not prejudiced against them. This is not a matriarchal church, okay? We are a church that believes in equality. Just because every person we have ordained, I have ordained to this ministry so far, has been a woman, does not mean that we don't want these men. We want these men. And we are creating the luminary path to make it possible. I, this week, have completed the intake form for those who want to apply to become ordained in the Church of Korihor. Power, power. So, those of you who don't know, it's General Conference weekend. And apparently, I didn't watch it. I don't care, except to say this. Every General Conference, they have some poor schmuck who has to get up in front of the whole world, broadcast by satellite, by television, by every manner of, by internet, to the whole world, to all the 4 million active Mormons in the world. I'm not giving them the 13 million members of record don't even go to church. No, brethren, no. May they dwindle and perish under their own weight. I don't even care. I don't even, or flourish. Who cares? I don't care. Wealthiest religion in the world, by the way. Also, flat out one of the wealthiest institutions in the world. And not only big enough, not only is the Mormon Church big enough that it could be traded on the NASDAQ, it has subsidiaries that are traded on the NASDAQ. Screw those guys. Anyway, subsidiaries are traded on the public market. I mean, how is this? Okay, whatever. Here's the point. Apparently, every year, we've been called lazy learners. We've been called, fair weather friends, those of us who are ex-Mormons. And apparently, some schmuck got called this time to talk talk crap about ex-Mormons and antis. Suppressive person. No, that's a different one. That's a different cult. Sorry. Mixing up my cults. Antis, anti-Mormons. Hello. Joe Rollins, author of the Korihor Argument and first herald of the Church of Korihor. Check your records. Yes, we are. Yes, we are a church according to the state of motherfucking Utah. According to the Internal Revenue Service. Was that within 7 minutes that I used the F-bomb? Who cares? I don't care. So, yes, we are the Church of Korihor. We are a godless congregation, and we are mighty and powerful with our sensible size congregation. It is a reasonable size. It is for a small church. We are mighty in ideology and potential. Okay. I just want to make, apparently it was Elder Rasband who's the poor schmuck this year. Just want to say, I'm insulted that I was recently referred to as a footnote. Not really, but I am insulted on behalf of all other of my fellow anti-Mormon ex-Mormons, my fellow Exmos. I, ExmoJoe, alias. True formal name, Joe Rollins. Take offense to being referred to as a footnote in the history of the grand work of Mormonism. So, Elder Raspend, and somebody please send this to him. I formally challenge you. Yeah, that's right. I demand satisfaction. I challenge you, Elder Raspend, or any member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. Yea, any member of the First Presidency. Can you hear me? President Nosferatu? And any member of the Quorums of 70, any stake president or member of stake presidency, any bishop or member of bishopric to a formal debate. Let it be a Lincoln Douglas debate or a moderated conversation. I challenge you to a debate on the premise, and if you wish, you may modify in any way. Oh, mission presidents. Let us open it to mission presidents. And of course, by 70s, I include area authority 70s. On the premise, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a corrupt cult. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. I'll be a footnote in the history of that bold statement. And let that footnote read, Rollins v. Insert your name here, Elder Raspend. Let's go, bro. Let's go, bro. Let's have it. But today, we're talking about something else. We're talking about Reclaim. Reclaim is the newest ritual of the Church of Korihor. We are a godless congregation, and we want everybody out there to be able to deconstruct from their wicked congregations of the past, high control groups, etc. That includes the Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, Seventh-day Adventists, and yes, it includes MAGA. I'm just saying it. I'm just calling it out like this. We're not political organizers. MAGA is not a political identity. It is not a political party. It is not even a political ideology. Let's be blunt. Make America Great Again, the pro-Trump movement is a cult, is a high control group. And same as any other high control group, we oppose it. We oppose charlatans. So those who want to deconstruct and repair the damage done by having joined a high control group, we have created a ceremony, a ritual, where people can make friends and join a community where you can experience what it is like to support one another and to be supported in moving forward without the vestiges of trauma that were caused by your past. Now, apparently, you're not allowed to say, according to the apologists of Mormonism, to say that this experience, our bad experiences, are traumatic. Was this, do I remember this being Cardinellis who made this statement recently with this whole controversy with Jared Halverson? What a joke. Yes, there is such a thing as religious trauma. I know. I live with it. It's been 24 years since I decided that there was no God. I was a Mormon missionary, and I recently, on Cult's live stream, I had a revelation. That's right. The cult of Joe gets revelations. And my revelation, though, was from within, which I was talking with this very nice gentleman, whose name escapes me at the moment, who is a therapist. And I said, answer me straight. Don't ask me a question. Answer me straight up. Tell me about this. And he said, after I relayed to him this experience that I have had, he said, Joe, it sounds like textbook PTSD. It's like, that's post-traumatic stress disorder right there. And I said, wow, it does seem like it, doesn't it? And he said, I'm certain that it is. And that put me to thinking, I can be very, very comfortable. Hold on, let me Apparently I'm getting a warning. I can become very comfortable in my atheism, in my post-Mormonism. And that can be generally good, but it can also be a little bit wonky because I sometimes forget that I haven't healed from all of my trauma. Now, some aspects of Mormonism I let go of pretty easily. Ironically, one of them was Sunday church. I was like, leave me alone. I want to get up early on a Sunday. I don't want to have to put on a suit. I don't want to have to go in anywhere and listen to some guy sermonize, give some boring sermon. And now look at where I am. Maybe it's just because I'm doing it. Maybe it's just because, frankly, we're better at it. I'm just going to say, I'm just calling it. I'm just saying it. You notice they don't call sermons at the weekly meetings of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They don't call them sermons. They call them talks. And boy, are they ever talk. Here at the Church of Korihor, we sermonize, old-fashioned. We preach. I probably shouldn't do that. I had a bloody nose just before this broadcast, so I'm going to take it easy on that. Yeah. Anyway, so I wanted to share something with you. Let's go ahead and share your screen. Share my screen. You keep your screen to yourself. You will see this link in the description of this video, but you can also get to it fairly easily by going to korihor.org/reclaim. You'll see this page. This is our newest sacrament. It's available to the public to see. You will see the description here. It says a communal right to support one another and create lasting friendships while releasing the toxicity of high control groups. This right is performed by expressing in a community of friends one way in which your high control group still has hold over your life and writing it down on a sacrificial slip of paper. Then symbolically destroy it, committing to live free of that group's toxic control. Our reclaims are free, RSVP-only events that are open to all and are never recorded. Join by Zoom and bring a slip of paper and a scented candle if you wish, and reclaim yourself at one of our meetings. By the way, as some of you have noted from my making this announcement, these are the calm meetings that I have talked about from the past. There is a very real possibility in the near future that we will also be doing these meetings by Discord server. And so yes, so that is still coming. Unfortunately, the volunteer who has been working on this for us, Joey, has come down with COVID. So Joey, we wish you a speedy recovery, my friend. And then, of course, there is a link wherein one can donate any quantity they like or donate monthly so we can reach more people. Any of the money that's donated to this using this link, I will then turn around to with some video ads that I'm working on that we will then use to promote to people who are looking at videos online about Mormonism. Particularly like Mormon stories and videos like this, channels like this. And we will promote to them that you can join one of our Reclaim groups, come to our Reclaim meeting. Then you'll see that there are meetings. The first one is scheduled for this upcoming Saturday. Some of these, I don't know why it skipped weeks. I'm going to have to go back and manually create them. But basically, people will be able to sign up to RSVP to get one of these, to join one of our Reclaim meetings. You do not have to still be a member of Mormonism or of the Mormon Church. This can be, by the way, any member of any restoration branch. This doesn't just have to be the real Mormon Church. Those people from other branches are going to love that I just called it that. Sorry, it's the one I came out of, and there's still a little bit of that toxicity in there. The Community of Christ and other organizations are just as legitimate a Mormon church as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Frankly, it's just a matter of legalistics that the Mormon church still retained the name, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You know, really, at the end of the day, the Community of Christ Church, they had as much claim to it as anyone. That's my opinion. So anyways, yeah, so you'll be able to sign up for the scheduled events. I am going to schedule them for the next 2 months, and people will be able to sign up. What'll happen is you'll RSVP, you click on the RSVP, and it takes you to a form. It tells you what to bring with you. You don't actually have to bring a candle. If you're like, oh, fire bad, friends good, well, you can just destroy it. But I think it'll be fun to have everybody in a well ventilated area. Bring a scented candle. I have one with me right here, and bring a slip of paper, and you will get a chance to, in front of this community, express what it is that you want to release from a high control group that you are currently leaving, that you left recently, or that you left years ago. You'll be able to just, yes, join us for any reclaim, even if you have been out of the church for a while and you want to support other people. I went to a calm meeting. I want to tell you guys about this. Remove. I went to a calm meeting. I want to say 10, 15 years ago, something like that, when I recently came to Utah. And I was invited. And I had so much fun. It was a blast. And I was like, wow, I've been out of this cult for a while. And when it came around to my turn to say or do something, I'm like, I just basically stood up and said, so I've been out of the church for a while. I'm mainly here because I heard you could be supportive of other people, and that's what I wanted. Did you guys see that spirit fly over my? I renounce everything. I renounce. There is a God, and He's angry with us all. Everybody run before He Korihors all of us. I got up and I said, I'm here to support you guys because apparently you guys need support. And a lot of these people, most of the people at this meeting, were still members of the church, expressing their doubts. I've talked about it a few times. The women, I won't go back over that. Women, it largely had to do with their bodies. That was the main problem. Their body, and and then some church history. Pretty much everybody trying to deconstruct Mormonism discovers that they're not okay with the church's history just being either a big secret or being flat out a lie. The historiography of the Mormon church is notoriously false. They just lied to the membership. And then and so these meetings were a great opportunity to just say out loud. It always bothered me that women couldn't hold the priesthood. It always bothered me that black men couldn't hold the priesthood until 1978. And then when they finally let black men hold the priesthood the same as everybody else, they didn't explain why the ban had been put in place. And now people talk about it like, oh, it just never should have existed in the first place, as if we didn't grow up in an environment where everybody knew that there was an explanation, that the general membership of the church was regularly taught on why black men weren't allowed to hold the priesthood. I grew up, I was born 2 years after the ban was lifted. I was born 2 years later. And I grew up hearing the stories about how people who were born of African extraction, which, by the way, if you go back far enough, is everybody. It's everybody. How people of African extraction were born in bodies in a family line as an act of mercy. In the family line of either Cain, brother of Cain and Abel, or of Ham, the son of Noah, who knew his father's nakedness, which, depending on who you're talking about, that involves anything from looking at his father's junk and stuff to having familiar relations with his drunken father. Yes, drunk Noah. to castrating his own father, depending on who you're talking to. There are all kinds of stories about how Ham becomes cursed forever, but the excuse became during the era of Western slavery, well, early Western chattel slavery, because I still am very much passionate about calling out that slavery still exists now. It's not like it went away. We put an end to chattel slavery in America, sort of. But we don't have to get into that. This narrative came about that said that God cursed the descendants of Ham to be to be subservient to whites and to other people and to other groups, that they were less than. And that was sold to us when I was a kid in the church as an act of mercy, because there were some souls in the war in heaven, they told us, that were less valiant. And because they were less valiant than us, they weren't part of the chosen generation. Sorry to tell you, millennials and younger, but we Gen Xers are the chosen generation. They weren't born into bodies in families where they could be ordained to the priesthood, but they could still be resurrected and still attain a part of the glory of God, but their families couldn't be sealed for eternity like everybody else's because they didn't have the priesthood, and that's a priesthood right. And their families couldn't be eternal. And then when the priesthood ban was lifted, this narrative started to build that said, you see, it was God's plan all along that we would retroactively ordain these men to the priesthood so that their families could be eternal. God has a plan. It is all one eternal round. Bullshit. We got brought up with this crap. Okay. A lot of this was easy for me to let go of when I was a Mormon missionary. I was glad to be rid of it, frankly. And yes, it is hurtful to go back and revisit it and say, wow, these people are still having to deconstruct from this. They need to be able to come to a meeting where they can say out loud, it always bothered me. And to be able to laugh about it when everybody else laughs about it. It's like, yeah, it bothered all of us. This stupid narrative, this stupid story bothered all of us. And yes, to hear people talk about it now we have, I'm hoping I don't start bleeding now. Curse you, Mormon, Jesus. To have all these women, these momfluencers on Instagram posting pictures bearing skinny girl shoulders because they're all at the gym and or getting liposuction every, so often, because the new culture, by the way, I don't know how many of you Exmos out there remember this. When I grew up in the Mormon church, for a Mormon woman to get a boob job was catastrophic sin. That was a terrible sin. It wasn't declared by the church anywhere that I knew of, but everybody I knew who got plastic surgery, somebody gave them shit about it. Somebody shamed them for it. It was considered sin. That's cool, Hyde. I want to thank Hyde for being here. And I did see you that you're here, Jules. Thank you very much. Tess is back with us. Tess, I hope you got wherever you were going safely. And so I just want, these meetings, they became an opportunity for people to cry, if that's what they needed to do, to let it go. They became an opportunity for people to laugh. Oh, there was a lot of laughing. There's a lot of, I can't believe any of us believe this. And people showed up to these meetings with only minor doubts, usually. Just one or two that they were ready to talk about. But the floodgates start to open up, and people who didn't think they were going to talk about the priesthood ban suddenly were like, well, to be honest with you, I agree with all of you. It did bother me. And all of a sudden, just having this closed door meeting, anybody could attend. You were invited if you were invited. but you had to RSVP and somebody had to invite you. And, there was somebody at the door to make sure that, everybody who showed up had been invited to the meeting. We didn't have like tickets or anything. It was just like, hi, who invited you? And there was usually, I went to a few of these, and they're usually groups of between 10 and 20 people at a time. And it was great fun. And we let go. And then we usually would have a potluck and stuff. And when we start doing these in person, which I'm hoping we can do soon here in Utah and in other places, I'm sure we'll do the same. We'll do something like a potluck kind of thing. I think it would be great. I think it'd be great fun. For now, though, there are people all over the world who are deconstructing from Mormonism. Let's get a few of these reclaims going. Try it out with our community, with our Exmo community. And then as quickly as possible, friends, let's ordain some luminaries who are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses. And let's get these Jehovah's Witnesses on the deconstruction path as well. Because let me tell you, I don't know if you've been following what's been going on over there, but the Jehovah's Witnesses are going after their own members. And there are people who want to apostatize from the Jehovah's Witnesses. And oh my Lanta, do they have trauma. They have so much religious trauma. If you think Scientology going clear grade, like I often say, and I haven't heard anybody push back on it yet. I say, look, you get an ex-Mormon, an ex-Scientologist, an ex-evangelical into a meeting, into a room where they sit there and compare notes on how awful our experience in religion had been. And an ex-Jehovah's Witness walks into the group, everything stops. Hold on, you guys. My friend, are you okay? These people have so much trauma. They have so much trauma. And when they leave, it is bad, you guys. I can't tell you how many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses I know who the first thing they did as soon as they left their church, was to turn to drugs, like hard drugs, addiction, and to crawl out of that. Ex-evangelicals the same. Just like in Mormonism, we get told, we were told the narrative of what your ex-Mormon experience would look like. You can leave the church, but you can't leave it alone. That's what they told us. Oh, I see people, I see so-and-so left the church, and I saw that go ahead, Exmos, what is it? Their countenance was fallen. The light had gone out of their eyes. Give me a fucking break. Give me a fucking break. And we were told this, not because leaving the church was evil, though, of course, people thought it was. No. The point was to instruct us on how we were to behave when we leave the church so that others would know we were unhappy and miserable after leaving the church. Nobody wanted to warn you ahead of time that being in the church would make you just as miserable or worse. Of course, maybe because so many of them like it. They like it just the way that it is. But I can tell you, it's not all of them. It's not all of them. It wasn't all of us. I'll show you a couple of relics here I think you might find interesting before I go on to the rest of this. Because the first ritual of the reclaim is going to happen here in front of your very eyes. I, ExmoJoe, I'm going to do it myself. I want to show you guys something. You see this torn up clipboard? Torn to shit? This guy right here. Covers like peeled half off. This was my clipboard on my mission. I've saved it for 25 years. I don't know why. And I opened it up just a few minutes before this. I was looking for my mission call. I may have actually thrown that away. I've been saying for a while that the first exoration is a rite I've yet to complete writing up for and building the altar for. I'm hoping when we start doing in-person events to start doing exorations. Exoration is a funeral pyre for God, and you bring something sacrificial. It's very much like the Reclaim, only a bigger deal and done in person, because I don't think you can do it by yourself, really. It's not really for that. But I opened this bad boy up and found there was nothing left in the pocket of it except for these two items. Piece of shit. A baptism photo of a young woman whose name I don't even remember. Didn't remember. And a convert baptism form for the first person that I baptized in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Her name was Hilda. I'd forgotten all about it. This photo says in Spanish, "Dear friend Rollins," I'm translating. It has been a great pleasure to get to know you in these times that God is guiding you always. Continue in your path. You are very humble, and you will be a great example, Elder. We will always be friends. You can always contact me. Please do esfuérzate. Try always to be happy and smile. I hadn't read that yet. I hadn't read that yet. Those of you who know me and have been guests here at Godless Sermons of the Church of Korihor may have known from the past that my mission was very traumatizing. I had depression then, and I have depression now. Turns out being depressed is not something Mormonism cures. Sorry, it's just factual. You cannot cure your depression with Mormonism. Believe you me, I have tried. You don't believe me? Ask a psychiatrist. I don't know what else to tell you. But my 2 years in Peru, I felt very alone. My 2 years in Peru, I felt very abandoned by God. I come from good Mormon stock. My father was a missionary. His father was a missionary. His father was a missionary. Grandpa Jasper? Yeah. Great-Grandpa Jasper may not have been a missionary, but I'm pretty sure he was. Actually, no, I don't think Great-Grandpa Jasper was a missionary. I think, but his father was a missionary. And all the way back to the first Mormons, the first Rollinses to be Mormons. I was proud to be a missionary for the church. I saved money all of my teenage years to be able to go on a mission. It wasn't a lot of money I raised. And yes, my dad wound up paying for it. Yes, Mormon. Those of you who have never been Mormon missionaries are expected to pay for their own missions. And oftentimes their family winds up paying for it, or somebody from the congregation ends up paying for it. It's usually, at that time, it was about $350 a month you were expected to pay to put a missionary out in the field. My grandfather's day, you took whatever money you had and you had to live on that. Basically, you got as much money together as you could, and then you went out on your mission. And then if you got into any trouble, well, then the congregation back home was supposed to find a way to send you money. I think is the way I always understood it. Anyways, I was down in Peru. The church received $350 a month from my parents. And then it goes into this big fund. And then, each missionary receives some allotment, some allowance, based on that. It actually was a fairly good system. It worked anyways. I mean, not that the church couldn't have paid to have us out there. Turns out they could have easily just paid us, or paid to at least, cover all of our expenses. It was actually the money management part of it actually became one of the more difficult parts of being a missionary. We were always poor. We were always living on a shoestring budget. And we were always worried about becoming sick or injured and I had more than one experience where we had to deal with this, where if you got sick or injured out there, you were kind of fucked. In Peru, the church doesn't have insurance. Didn't then anyways. I asked about this. I said, what am I supposed to do? Because I had a companion who thought he was having a heart attack towards the end of my mission. And I asked my zone leaders about this. I said, what's the story? What happens if, what if he'd had a heart attack? Like, it turns out he had a weak heart muscle, and he was having like spasms, and he was, and I said, what if he'd had a heart attack? What were we supposed to do after that? I mean, is there a billing address? Is there some kind of insurance? And my zone leader says, well, you use your Fondo de Emergencia. At the time, well, I won't tell you how we carried it because they might still do that. We carried $100 on us pretty much all the time. Like $100 bill. Just in case we had an emergency. If it isn't $100 to get whatever you needed, you're in trouble. And so I'm sure in that situation, what normally would happen, other people, I've talked to other people, normally what happens is they put you in contact with your parents. Then if your parents have you covered under some kind of insurance and that can cover you wherever you are in the world, well, then that. If not, then the church may step in and actually do something. But first, they're going to try and get your parents on the horn, get your parents on the hook to handle whatever emergency you may happen to have, up to and including sending you home in a box. And so it was a stressful situation. But in addition to that, we were constantly under pressure to get baptisms. Of course, we were there to baptize. But I believed then and I believe now that that's not the real mission, the point of the mission. The point of the Mormon mission is to convert the missionary. It's to make you into a better leader. It's to make you into a more faithful husband and father. It's to indoctrinate you further into the group. And so the fact that we were constantly put under so much pressure to be door-to-door vacuum salesmen of faith meant that we were made to feel guilty because we weren't getting baptisms. And so our goal was that we were supposed to baptize at least 2 people into the church every month per companionship, 1 for each missionary. So your objective was to baptize at least 12 people a year. And at least one of those 2 people a month needed to be a man, because it was our responsibility to recruit priesthood leaders. So 2 people every month, at least one of which was going to become a man, was going to become priesthood holder in the church, because the church in Peru, the Mormon church, dating back to the generations previous to mine, the pre-Fujimori years, if you know anything about Peruvian history, was mostly women. When these American missionaries went down to Peru back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, actually, I think it started, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Peruvian women thought they were quite something, needless to say. And there are these beautiful locations out there in the jungle, in the mission where I serve, the Peru Lima North. There are these beautiful rivers, and like coming off of the Amazon, and waterfalls, and like gorgeous locations. And before the church had a lot of church buildings out there, these missionaries, they would go out into the jungle, they would go out into the river, and they would baptize people in the river like it was, John the Baptist and baptizing Jesus. By the time I got there, we had church buildings with fonts that had cold water. And so in the selva, in the jungle, we would, baptize them in the cold water because it was refreshing and nice. It was hot as fuck. I'm from Arizona. It was so hot, man. It was so hot in the Amazon. I don't know that. I know that sounds stupid to even say, but it's true. But it's worth noting. This was hot. Lima was another story. In our summer up here in the northern hemisphere, down there in Peru, which is not that far from the equator. It's, but it is South America. It is beyond the equator, and it gets cold in Lima, man. It gets cold. And so what we would do, the little story for you, we would take our heaters, in some of these countries, it's not that uncommon around the world at the time anyways. Instead of a water heater at the, down at the source, you had your water heater, if you were lucky enough to have a water heater, which is not always, was a shower head that plugged into current, and that you would turn it. So you'd turn on your water, and then you would, before you got into the shower, you would reach over and you would flip a switch. You would click a switch on a wire. I'm thinking half in Spanish now. I've only ever really explained this in Spanish. And so I'm like having some trouble like translating on the fly. So so you would click it before you got into the water, because once you were in the water, if you reached up and touched that bad boy, or you touched the wire, or you got too close to it, you could arc, or you could make contact, and you could get 220 volts of electricity. Kapow! So it was always a little bit dangerous. Usually it was just a little, it was like a tingle, like because you just got into it. That's how we would get hot water. And our mission president was actually a really good guy, Belisario Benitez. He made sure that as often as possible we got we got one of those heaters. And he said, and he used to say, look, those of you who are out there trying to be, true, bold, brave missionaries, if you don't have a water heater, we'll buy one, and we'll get you one. Because he said, because those, you don't kill bacteria with cold water. You kill it mainly with soap, but but he had a fair point. I mean, hot water does. It certainly would have made it a lot more, a lot more. Yeah, Kathy, that's the truth. It certainly made it a lot more comfortable, a lot less unpleasant. I can't tell you how many cold baths, how many bucket baths I did. In some parts of Lima, instead of metered water for every house, you had water for that section of Lima. And so people would, and what they would do is they would have a main. We worked in some of the poorer parts of, northern Lima has some of the poorest districts in the city. And people would open up their taps and just leave them open all day, because the water for that section of the city, the water main they would was on a timer that would open up from a certain time of day to another time of day. It was like some like 6 a.m. to like 10 a.m. and then again from like noon until 3, I want to say, something like that, and then again from like 5 until like 8. So basically, p.m. And so basically the water was only on for part of the day. So we would take these like 50-gallon drums, these 50-gallon garbage cans, and put them underneath the shower tap or the faucet in the bathroom with the lid off of there. And, we would just leave the tap open 24 hours a day. And then that bucket would fill up, that trash can would fill up with always scummy water that always smelled moldy. And because it always was, there was always mold in there. And then it would overflow in the shower into the floor drain all day while we were out tracting whenever the water was on. And then in the mornings, you would take a small bowl or bucket, you get in that shower, which usually, you had about enough space as this chair I'm sitting in. You get in there and you would, and that was showering in Peru for us for 2 years in a lot of places. Then out in the jungle, I'm going to be honest with you, we just straight up disobeyed Presidente Benitez. We just didn't. Nobody, if you moved into an apartment, which we did move around quite a bit, if you moved into a cuarto, a little room with a shower and bathroom in it, if you moved into a cuarto that didn't have a heater, we just didn't bother with it. It's like, whatever. And you're just gonna get electrocuted anyways. And frankly, after you've been tracting out in the Amazon for like 2 hours, 3 hours in the morning, and then like 4 or 5 hours in the afternoon, and then another 3 hours in the evening, if you were a very naughty little missionary, you would say, you know what, before we go out tracting again, let's just go back to the cuarto and have another ducha. It's time to go ducharse. So we would do this. By the time I was in my last area, by the time I was in Iquitos, I'd been out for a year. And by that point, I would tell my companions, I'm like, please, dear God, can we please go back to the cuarto and have a shower? and we go back because I got so sick and tired of being covered in sweat. I'm from Arizona. Okay, I can sweat from time to time. I had no idea what being sweaty and hot was until I was in the Amazon preaching. And it was stressful, man. And when we didn't get discussions, we'd get talked to. How many first charlas did you do this week? And if you went out and knocked on doors all week and you didn't get any first charlas, first discussions, where we tell people about God has a plan for you, bada being, Jesus, if there's time, and then Joseph Smith in the Book of Mormon. Please take this Book of Mormon, read these 2 chapters. We'll be back tomorrow to review what you haven't read, frankly. Will you read this? We'll come back tomorrow. They didn't read it. They never read it. We would read it, what we call passages, with them. If they felt the Holy Spirit on that second day, we invited them to be baptized. Plain and simple. That's the second charla. And we would get this, there was all these magic formulas. You have to get 10 first charlas to get 1 second charla, 1 baptismal commitment. You have to get 4 baptismal commitments a month to get 2 baptisms. And it's like, or some variation of that. And if you got no baptism, if you got no first charlas, you got talking to, not from some wise person who's had, 10, 15, 20 years ecclesiastical experience. No, from some other 20-year-old guy, probably from Utah, telling you, what are you doing out here, man? Like, why don't you just go home? Look, it's hard out there. You telling me that's hard? I'm out there doing it. I got 2 baptisms. I made gold last month. Well, how nice to be you. Give me the secret. You work hard. We're doing that. You got to go out there. You got to have the Spirit with you. You got to be obedient, obey the rules. And we had this program called Ammonites, where we believed that God would give us baptisms if we were complying with a certain set of mission standards that we regarded as being commandments, just like the 10, or just like any of the commandments in the Doctrine and Covenants. They were commandments for us. They included get up every morning at 6:30 a.m. for the Oración de Fe, which is the prayer of faith, which was a prayer that you said to pray to God that the faithful, that the elect would find the missionaries anywhere that they are. And that if we did that every morning at 6:30 a.m. before we got started with our daily schedule, showers, which fortunately in our mission, this isn't true about all missions. In our mission, you were allowed to shower by yourself. You weren't allowed to go pee or you were allowed to pee by yourself. You were allowed to but you couldn't like go to a public restroom by yourself. But at home, at the cuarto, you could be by yourself in the bathroom. That wasn't true about everywhere. They were very, very extra cautious about not, no little factory business. Don't be getting that little factory business. And, we would get our day started, pray, do our scripture study, pray again, go out to breakfast, pray again, get out there and start tracting. And to do that all day, every day, including Sundays. We didn't get days off. We got a P day where you got like half of a day off. P day is your preparation day. Luckily for us in our mission, we had in each companionship of the few luxuries we had, we'd have a laundress. We would have a woman usually from the congregation, who was paid a pittance, a small fee to wash our clothes for us. And we were very fortunate to have that. We also would have a pensionista. There's a woman, again, usually a woman, usually a member of the church, who got paid a pittance, not nearly enough to cover even the food we were eating, to prepare our food for us. And we did have meals prepared for us so that we could maximize the time that we spent out on the street preaching. And I think I made goal a total of 3 months of my mission. Most of my mission, we got no baptisms per month. Or we would get 1 baptism a month per companionship. Now, we would hear all these stories about missionaries who'd come down and they'd baptize back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. They must have been spiritual giants, because they'd baptize 10, 15, 20 people out in the river, most of them women, most of them younger women. We weren't even allowed to teach women. I don't even know, unless they were part of a family, as far as elders. Sisters could teach. The sister missionaries taught women. The elders, we taught men and families. Sisters could teach families too. But we couldn't teach women by themselves. That's why it's surprising. This is one of my more difficult things about my mission. It was like I said, back in those days, elders used to go out and teach, young women all the time. And young women, it's like, look, if I could baptize, 17, 18, 19-year-old women in the, girls, technically, really, I'd be out there getting baptisms all day long too, because so many of these young women saw, I don't want to say, look, we used to say some really nasty shit about women. And I am ashamed that I didn't say more against it, or maybe even participated in it. If I did, I don't remember doing that. I do remember saying to more than one person privately, I don't like that term. I don't like that we talk about women that way. Even when I was a young toxic Mormon, we called women snakes, like in English, the word snakes. And young women, teenage girls, snakitas. Snakitas were young Peruvian women who saw an opportunity to come to America by marrying an American missionary. And they were temptresses. They were, and this is the way we talked about girls who were like 17 years old. And I would say to my zone leaders, more often than not, we shouldn't call them that. They are still souls. They are still daughters of our Heavenly Father. They do still need salvation. And to assume all of them just want to just see an opportunity to go to America is frankly racist. Even if it is true, do we turn away people's souls? Do we turn them away from the gospel? So, okay, you're worried about them just getting baptized for the missionary who baptizes them. That's a legitimate fear. That's a legitimate concern. And I still think that's true. Because nobody should be getting converted to any religion because they're drawn to the opportunities of getting married to the missionary. That's pretty twisted, if you ask me. True. But we can implement a system where, you teach these people and then you hand them off to another companionship to baptize them. Or we mix it. We could do any manner of things, any number of things to mix it up so that people aren't just connecting to the missionary. And then, because then the missionary gets transferred 2, 3, 4 months later. Missionary gets transferred to another area. Those people stop going to church. It's a big dirty secret in Mormonism. That's how the church grew to 17 million members of record. We were going out there and we were baptizing anybody who would say yes. And then as soon as we were gone from that area, transferred to another area, and we were young, dumb, idiot, boy missionaries out there. You think we kept all their contact information? We did not. We did not. Do you think we kept in touch with all of our converts? We did not. We went on. We were moving on. We had our lives. We had our 2 years, our tithe of life, as we called it, because it's 10% of 20. We had to go out there and do our 2 years and get home again. 25 years later, I remember in my dreams, literal dreams, when I am sleeping, and when I am under a lot of stress, which is often, I know when my stress level is just too damn high. I am too damn burnt out because I start having the mission dream. And I remember the stores, because then there in Peru, a lot of homes, when people need to make extra money, especially women and especially single moms need to make extra money, they would have a tienda built into the store, into their home, into their parlor. They would transform the living room into a store. They'd set up a counter and they would sell, notebooks like this one and pens like this one. So we were always in there, and we were always trying to convert these women because their parlor, their front door is open to the public. And because they're open to the public, technically, we weren't alone with them. So we would try to convert them because the men were often during the day, they weren't available. They were off at work, or they were off drinking, or they were off, doing any other number of things. But the women were at home. So we would go in, we were always after trying to convert these women. And I remember sitting in these tiendas and talking to and teaching discussions to people. I'll tell you one that I talk about in my book, The Korihor Argument. This particular woman's store that I often dream about. I won't tell you her name, but my memory serves, this was in Koyike, which is where this one was. This application. And this woman told me in one of my discussions with her that she wanted to stop seeing us. She wanted to cancel her baptism. And I was heartbroken because I thought we were having good discussions, and I thought, and this is a woman who was older than me. I didn't expect there was any snakita action here. She was married. She had little kids. And it was rare for us to find couples in Peru who were actually married, because the church didn't acknowledge common law marriage, even though the law does. You have to be formally married in a civil ceremony, and if they are not, the couples living together do not. They have to either break up to be baptized in the church, or they had to get married. And down there, we Mormon missionaries, Peru is a very Catholic country, and Mormon missionaries didn't have the authority to marry people at the time. I don't know if I imagine they still don't. And so you had to pay the mayor of the town or somebody or a justice of the peace to marry people, to perform a marital ceremony. And it was expensive. The cheapest I ever heard was like 300 soles, which was a little less than $100 at the time. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but in Peru at that time, to get $100 together extra for the people we were teaching, that was a lot of money. And that was in masivos. What they would do is they would get like anywhere from 10 to 50 to 100 couples in a big parking lot arena, a big like fly swap meet area or something, a big mercado, and they would clear out all the shops, and you'd get like, it was amazing. Sometimes they'd have dozens of couples, women dressed up, men dressed in suits, dressed to the nines, and either a priest or an alcalde, a mayor, would stand up at the front and perform a marriage for like dozens of couples at the same time. You all turn and kiss the bride, and then they would sign their thing. And so if there wasn't a matrimonio masivo coming up, you had to tell your converts, look, you're going to have to get married if you're going to get baptized in the church. And it got to the point where, once again, instead of helping them through this transition and guiding them through this spiritual transition, what we did is we would knock on their door. This is how we were taught by other missionaries. So again, another thing I hated about being a missionary. We would knock on the door, and the first thing we would ask, rudely, and I mean, I hated this. I every time I did it, I hated it. It's almost always during the day, a woman who would answer the door. And we would ask her, Señora, ¿está el señor de la casa? Which means, is the master of the house in? Is the man of the house in? Is the man of the home in? No está trabajando. He's not here, he's working. Yeah, ciao. We were gone. Or, no hay señor en esta casa, chico. Which means, there is no man of the house in this household, young man. Yeah, ciao. Literally like that. Ciao, hasta luego. Bueno. And then we would just walk on. This is the way when we were greenies, when we were new missionaries, this was the way we were taught to talk to women. And we were gone. I'll never forget when I had a serious confrontation with one of my trainers, one of my early missionary companions. I said, I don't care how it was done. I hate this. I can't talk to a woman this way. This is a society where older people are treated with dignity and respect, and we are not representing the church in a way that makes us look like we respect women. And he's like, and my companion said, we don't. We are trying to baptize families, and we're looking for priesthood holders and tithing payers. That's the way it was. That's the way we talked. That's the way we were taught too. And I hated it, but we did have to make good time when we were knocking doors, because you would have to we would try to do 2 to 3 streets before lunch every day. Then we would do another 2 to 3 streets in the afternoon, unless we got a first discussion. If the person at home was a girl or a woman, a female person, we couldn't go in there. Unless they had a family member who was a man, or they had, or we had another person with us who again had to be a man, also had to be a priesthood holder, so we could go in there and we could teach her. And more likely than not, our zone leaders would say, we don't teach women by themselves. They would say, if you find a woman by herself and she's like, well, I'd like to hear about your church, I'd like to hear about the gospel, we were supposed to take their name and address down and refer them to the sister missionaries and get the sister missionaries over there to teach them, so that they could actually learn it. And then, but of course, if they were going to join the church, a man had to baptize them. So then that's when we would reemerge. It's like, okay, here we are. And so much of our time was actually spent trying to take down the names and addresses of women who would probably be likely to join the church, and decide, do we give this to the sister missionaries? Or do we try to round up a priesthood holder in the congregation, a man in the congregation who has free time, which, in the evening, and come back with him? And I can't tell you how many times I had women who would ask us, what is it with this policy that you can't teach women by themselves? We can't say we couldn't say what it was. Those of you who've seen the movie Heretic, you'll know about this. This is kind of a thing, right? That they did really well, by the way. If you haven't seen the movie Heretic, I highly recommend it. It's very good. As a matter of fact, I think we ought to organize watch parties where we actually just get together and watch Heretic, watch online, because I think that movie's great, honestly. And so I can't tell you how many times I had a woman who would tell me, what is it that you think is going to happen? And I would say, it's not what does happen. It's that anybody could say what happened. Like what? And I would tell them, Hermana, do you need me to spell it out for you? Yeah, tell me. What are you afraid will happen? Somebody might say that we forced you into something. Into the church? What? I can't tell you how many women I had this encounter with. Do you find me that attractive? They would say. It's not about that. It's about somebody. If somebody said something, who would say something? You think I would say something? It's not us. It's the church. The church says, we don't want you to be able to go to other people and say, these boys held, you know. And so, and they would say, and they're like, they would say, look, I'll get my friend to come over. She might join the church too. Unless your friend is a man, we can't do it. It's not going to happen. What? So you bring in another man who's a member of the church. Now I have 3 men from your church in the room. Yes. And that's when it's safe. Yes. How am I safer with 3 Mormon men in the room than 2? One of them is a Peruvian man who's from the neighborhood and a member of the church and can testify in court that she's lying. That's the blunt truth of what that means. And let me tell you, we got a lot of, you know what? I think I'm done with these discussions. You are welcome to never come back. And it was stressful. And it was sexist. And oh my God, so racist. And there was so much racism. There's so much sexism. And it was painful. It was a painful process to do that over and over and over again and put your dignity on the shelf. And all to get 10 discussions. So you can get 4 baptismal dates. So you can get 2 people to get baptized every month, at least one of whom was born with a penis. That's being quite frank with you. Because you got a penis, you can hold the priesthood. That's the way that works. And it was the most stressful thing in my life. It was the most stressful time in my life up until raising kids with autism as a person with autism. Now, the first time in my life, I have something that was actually as stressful as my mission. And there was more than one night where I would lie down in bed. I've told the story before. I don't want to beat a dead horse here. Where I would lie in bed at night and stare at the ceiling and think, why am I so depressed? And pray to God, pour my heart out. Heavenly Father, help me. Heavenly Father, please don't let me descend into this melancholy. Heavenly Father, make me feel the Spirit. Heavenly Father, you and I had this great relationship before I got out here, and now I'm here, and where are you? And so many times, thinking a belt, a cord from the lamp in the corner, the rope that we used to could be my salvation. Eternal damnation. 5 minutes from the shower rod in the bathroom and I'm done. And I don't have to be a failure anymore. So many moments. Over and over. Every night. I could just be done with everything. Would anybody even care? Would anybody even notice? I would start to review in my head, how many times do you even hear about that? Surely it happens. I can't be the first person who thinks about this. If I did it, I couldn't be the first missionary who did it. Surely it happens. Why don't you hear about it? Oh, so-and-so, they lost their boy on his mission. You would hear about it when somebody was hit by a train. You'd hear about missionaries who got sick on their missions. Then they would have funerals and they'd fly them home. Why don't you hear about this? Am I the weakest one? Is it me? Is Elder Rollins just that big of a failure? Or do they keep it a secret? Why do they keep it a secret? Is it so that we won't be afraid to come out here? Is everyone feeling this? Is everyone experiencing this? I can't tell you since I've been home how many times I've had this conversation with other missionaries who can say the same thing. Again and again and again, men and women. I know that feeling. I remember those nights. I was not the only one. We just weren't supposed to talk about it. There was no one to talk to. Were you going to tell your zone leader, or your district leader, some 20-year-old kid from freaking St. George? Some 20-year-old kid from Arequipa, Peru? Even if I could talk, the one time I talked to my mission president, who lives here, by the way, in Utah now, but is Peruvian, and is a good man, I am convinced. And I told him, I broke down, I cried in front of my mission president. I said, I don't think I'm cut out for this. I think I'm going crazy here. I'm losing it, man. And I don't know what I'll do. President, I don't know what I'll do. And he looked at me with great concern. He said, Elder Rollins, if you get to that point again, I want you to call me. Yeah, sure. I'm just going to go call you in the middle of the night. He's like, call me. And I was like, okay, I'll do it. Knowing that I was lying. There's no way I was going to call him because I was depressed. And he's like, Elder, do I need to send you home? Do I need to do something? Do I need to intervene here? And I would say, no, Presidente, I don't. No. Look, I'll get it together. I'll get my act together. I'll recommit. I'll try harder. I'll work harder, and I'll get it done. And he said, I'm concerned about you, so I want you to contact me and touch in regularly about what's going on with you. All right. I never did. That was it. That was the end of it. And then after that, I was senior companion at that point in time. He transferred me to another companionship in the jungle. And there, a guy who had some 3 or 4 months less time than me became my senior companion. And I was demoted to junior companion. These days, I can look back and see the many times that my mission president told us the senior companion, junior companion thing is basically administrative. It means nothing. You're all missionaries. Get out there and preach. It was a constant reminder to me that I had failed. And I was junior companion again and again and again and again until Presidente Benitez finished his mission and went home. And he and I had some good conversations when we had time, which was maybe 2 or 3 times, really, honestly, on my mission. And I really came to like the guy quite a lot and respect him a lot. I wrote to him regularly as we were required to. But then we got a new mission president who apparently saw that I had almost 2 years out in the field and I'd never held the leadership position. And so he said, look, we're going to make Elder Rollins a district leader. And then I became a district leader. It was the first time I had leadership responsibility. And let me tell you, that was the first time when I started to do baptismal interviews and ask people questions like, have you ever murdered anyone? What? I need to know before we can baptize you. It's one of the big 3. We'll get to the little questions like, will you commit to pay tithing? And will you commit to honoring the law of chastity? You know, will you commit to these things going forward? But there were 3 questions, which if the answer was yes, we had to stop everything and call the mission president and make sure that we could still baptize this person. So we get them done out of the way right away. Let me just ask you 3 questions. It may sound silly, but I do need your honest answer. We just need to get them out of the way. 1, have you ever murdered anyone? 2, which, by the way, I did know missionaries who got yes to that question. I never did. 2, I'll never forget my first baptism interview. I was with a woman. It's the first time I had been alone with a woman in almost 2 years. She and I go into a bishop's office in the church. If something happens in there that, whatever. But I was the district leader, so here I am doing the baptismal interview for a woman that's being converted by one of my missionaries. It was an asshole. I said, 1, have you ever killed anyone? What? No. Okay, I have to ask. 2, have you ever had sexual contact with a person of the same sex? What? I have to know. No, she says. I never got yes to that answer, surprisingly. I know I must have converted at least some gay people, or that my district did. But they were all closeted, I guess, or they just don't want to talk, or they wanted to get baptized really badly. Number 3, have you ever had or helped another to procure an abortion? And I got yes. She said, I didn't know you were going to ask me about that. She's like, this is very sensitive for me. I understand. I'm like, outside my mind here, people, at this point. Anyway, we did baptize her. But I had to get permission from the mission president, Presidente Benitez back then. Actually, yeah, so that was, no, it was President Benitez who promoted me to a district leader, I guess. Yeah, that was the end of his mission. And he said, Elder Rollins, if she has repented, baptize her. That was the end of that. It was extremely stressful. And towards the end of it, that's when I figured out the reason why God didn't answer me when I called out to him was because he wasn't there. After all said and done, after all the doubts about the Lost Book of Lehi, about Joseph Smith and Fanny Alger and Helen Mar Kimball, yes, I knew who those people were. After all of the doubts about, black people in the priesthood and mistreatment of homosexual people and people who are transgender, after all of the doubts, that was the one that broke me. Why was there no one? Why was God not there for me when I came that close? Now, whenever I am stressed because ABA therapy isn't working out, got a kid who won't bathe, smears the TV with poop, days and days of dealing with DCFS reports being called in on us because we have a kid with psoriasis. They think we don't take care of him. Or because he ran out in the middle of the night. Or because I have a client who's pushing a deadline, needs this done. But I've got a million things to do during the day, just trying to keep a family safe and keep them together. Then many years of my career, especially in video production, editing hours were the hours when everybody else was asleep. So we're talking from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. I'm drinking coffee and working all through the night to get to reach my deadlines. So in the rare moments where I'd actually get a moment to get some sleep, I'd have the mission dream. The mission dream goes like this. I'm in a store teaching somebody I probably shouldn't be teaching, but because I, worked out another person to be there or whatever, I'm able to teach with that person. I look down and I'm not wearing pants. I'm freeballing it, flapping wild in the wind. Embarrassed, trying to keep anybody from noticing. I'm teaching a discussion wearing no pants, no garments, totally naked waist down. Always the same dream. And always this dream, I remember looking down going, do I need to call Molly to bring me some pants? How do I work this out? And then thinking to myself, Molly? Who's Molly? Molly's my wife. What the hell am I doing here? Where am I? Wait a minute. And that's when I'll notice that I'm in the dream. I start lucid dreaming. I'm aware that I am dreaming. And yet, I keep teaching. Nothing stops the work. You keep going. I'll be out there preaching to people, wearing no pants, and go, hey, guy, eyes up here. Hey, up here. Listen, don't worry about that. Don't worry about this situation. You worry about your soul, buddy. Sister, hey, eyes up here. Let's talk about you and your soul. Oh, you don't understand, young man. You don't, all the same objections I would get when improve. You don't know. You're just a young kid. You don't even have a family. I am not a young kid. I'm 40 years old. I have 3 children of my own. Wait a minute. I do. Wait a minute. When did that happen? I'm dreaming. I'm dreaming again. I'm having the mission dream right now. Get me out of here. Wake up, Joe. Over and over and over again. I find tell this psychologist guy on Coach's show, and he says, I said, no, don't dick around and give me how does that make you feel? Don't give me that shit. Tell me what do you think? Because we're just shooting the shit. We're just having a good time on Coach's after show. And he said, sounds like PTSD, textbook PTSD. He's like, how long ago was this? I said that I was on a mission. It was 2000, 2001. It was 25 years ago. He goes, that's wild. I'm like, really? To have dreams of, he's like 25 years later, that's PTSD. I'm done with it. I shed all these other problems with the church 25 years ago when I stopped practicing Mormonism. I came home from my mission, gave my homecoming address, and almost immediately stopped attending church. Stopped praying right from the get-go. And then within a couple of years, I'd moved out. I moved out of my parents' house, got my own place. And it's the first time that I told somebody, a young woman, it's a friend of mine. Did I tell this story? We've already dwindled in people watching, so maybe I don't know, but not everybody wants to. A young woman that I was particularly fond of invited me over to her place because her roommate had, there was something about her roommate wasn't moved in yet, and she felt alone. She felt unsafe, and invited me to. But yeah, nothing happened. Nothing sexual happened. But we had, an evening where I held her through the night. And I knew this girl didn't actually want to marry me. We talked about it. And she wasn't interested. And so, there's no reason to talk about the future of us other than as friends, which we had been for many years. And we still are today. I'm very glad. And she said to me, Joe, what's going on with you? Lately, ever since you moved out, you've become a different person. And that's when I told her, the first person I told her said, here's the thing. I haven't been to church in a long time. And it's not because I'm inactive. It's because I don't believe in God anymore. I haven't for years. And it didn't happen all of a sudden. Just now, it happened on my mission when God wasn't there for me, when I was in the most desperate moment of my life, and I almost didn't make it back. And I let go of the word of wisdom so easy. I let go of the law of chastity very easily. Believe you me, that commenced a pretty wild time for me of breaking the law of chastity as much as I could, and as hard as I could, and as fast as I could, with as many people as I could. A bit of a hoe phase for me, yeah. As much as you can be, considering half Mexican, fat Star Wars fanboys. We didn't get that much play. Well, I don't know. This one didn't. But that mission trauma stuck with me. I got married in a Mormon church, shotgun wedding. Knew that I didn't buy into any of this. 10 years later, excommunicated by a high council. I've released all of this trauma about eternal families, about, afterlife, and about God, and about Jesus. I've let it go. Boom, gone. But that mission trauma is there. I don't need to carry more trauma. I'm making it every day now. I make it every day. And just keeping alive is a struggle for me, as some of you who are friends of mine know. I don't need this mission shit 25 years later. Not while I'm trying to sleep. Because, sleep is the time when your brain repairs. To repair this trauma, I need to release it. I need to let it go. I did not sign up to be a missionary for life. I did not sign up to be a missionary for life. Do this in a well-ventilated area. We'll call that what happened here. Other people who don't want to burn it, they can tear it up, dissolve it in acid. I don't care. Chew it up and swallow it. I don't care. Destroy it. I am not going to carry this mission trauma into my dreams anymore. From this moment forward, I reclaim my future. I reclaim my sleep. I reclaim from this tragedy. I'll let it go. Amen. Those of you who want to join me for Linger Longer, I'll make a link. I haven't made it yet, but you know the drill. I've spent my days making that reclaim page and also another page that we'll talk about in Linger Longer. Things are happening at the Church of Korihor. And these footnotes, we're organizing. We started out with Light Korihor. Those of you who want to be able to enjoy it, please make sure to go to the video tab, not the shorts tab, in our YouTube page. Because it's technically longer than 3 minutes. And now, Pastor Jenny's favorite hymn, I believe, to close us out. I'll see you Linger Longer, friends.
Hidden away, a young girl writes treasured thoughts by candlelight. Unaware, with hopes held fast, these secret words were her last. First book and last, a First book and